So hello guys. So today concept is how to implement a Swagger API by using Springboot. Apart from that, we have to connect mysql JDBC connection using a REST web service. By providing these examples, so we have to create a Springboot applications. After that, we have to generate MySQL database connections. Then apart from that, we have to create a REST endpoints in the controller. Then finally, we have to create a Swagger document API inside that particular Swagger. So in a real-time scenario, we have a lot of controllers are there. In a real-time application, in a real-time projects, there are a lot of controllers are there. On every controller, we have to create a documentation by using Swagger, or suppose let's take an example. In your particular projects we have 5 different controller out there. So on that controller we have to create a document of 2 controllers only. So on that 2 controllers we have to make a document by using the Swagger API. So in this example, we have to implement a Springboot application using Swagger API with database connection. So here let us see this example. So this is a project. So in this project we have a model class. In this model class I have named employee. So apart from that I have annotated the JP annotations. So here you know that already what is the entity, the table annotations. So this is a table annotations makes your particular Ibernet will create a particular table inside the particular database. The table name itself is employee. So then apart from that I have implemented 3 different fields like ID, name, destination. So here what is the purpose of this model classes? I want to perform, or I want to store some employee information in a particular database inside the table. On that scenario I am using these 3 attributes: employee ID, employee name and designation. So on that thing, here what I have to do, I make it the particular ID as auto increment. Okay, so we don't want to put ID inside the particular thing. The ID should be an auto increment. So we don't want to frequently add any ID value for that particular attribute. So the next thing, so we all know that we have to perform a JDBC connections by using Springboot, a database connection. We have a DAO class or DAO interface. So in a Springboot, I am using employee repository. Here you can see I am created a employee repository interface that extends JPA repository. So you know that whenever we try to implement Springboot, we have to perform some crud application. We have implement either crud repository or JPA repository. So this particular interface should be from the particular JPAs packages. So here inside this JPA repository I have 2 different things. So first one is our model class, next one is our ID. So here I am putting that integer because our particular model class attribute data type is integer. That's why I am making this one. So suppose if you have to use the long data type for that particular ID, means you have to change inside this particular DAO interface here. So the next one we have to create a service. So service is nothing but we have to perform your business logic. All the business logic should be entered in a particular service control. Let me go for service. Inside this service I want to create a class employee service that make annotation at a service. So you know that service annotations itself that understands this class should be a perform some business logic or business layer. Okay, now here I'm inject the dependency employee repository dependency. That way I will use a auto void annotations. So here what I have to do, I have to perform 5 different operations. So in these examples I have to perform crud. Crud means create, read, update and delete. So these 4 operations I can perform by using these applications. All the operations should be reflected from database as well as Spring Boot applications. So now here what I have to do, first one, first we have to create one database name. So let me go for application.properties. Here this is your application.properties file. In every Spring Boot applications we have to perform some database connection, we have to write some properties uh, informations in this particular application.properties. Here I am using server.port, our particular Tomcat port I just entered 9091. Apart from that I'm using mysql database, that's why I'm putting that spring.data source.url. These are all the properties, JPA properties. So obviously we know that. So next thing, this is a Hibernate related properties. Here spring.jpa.hibernate.ddl auto means update means. So your particular table should be in a whenever you will start the applications for execution, so it will be created every time, or it will be after executing the first time, it will like application should be start from that particular things like that. So here I'm making this database name is Springboot DB using Swagger with REST web service. So in this database I already created in my MySQL tab. So here you can see. So you all know that how to create a database. So create database Springboot DB using Swagger with REST web service. Then you have to use the particular database. So here, so these are all the Tomcat related properties. So let me go for the main content. So in a employee controller, so sorry, in employee service, yeah. So in an employee service, I'm implementing the first thing. So public string save employee. So I'm just creating one method. On that method, I'm passing the argument employee model, then object, the object reference. Now employee repository dot save. This employee repository is a auto void because we have inject the dependency of the repository interface. Employee repository dot save. This save method is coming from that JPA repository interface methods. So here whenever you use this kind of things, it will save some employee information by using this particular save method. So we don't want to write creating a connection what I'm saying is creating the connection, execute the query, try catch, like that, not like that, because Spring Boot it will remove all the things from normal JDBC. Okay, so we don't need to write to more lines of code from every database connection. So next one, what we have to do, so the next method is after storing the information, okay, so we have to retrieve some information from the particular table by using the method that is find all. This find all method is a predefined method from that JPA repository. So so this method will return the group of records already stored inside the particular table. So here the table we don't want to create manually, that Spring Boot itself created. So okay, so that's why we make it annotation as like at table annotation. This is Hibernate properties JPA related annotations. So the next thing should be, so inside that employee service, we have to perform, I want to get a particular employee ID. Okay, so suppose in your table you have a three different employee information. I want the particular single employee information. I want to fetch from the table. On that scenario, I am using that particular scenario using this employee ID. Okay, so don't worry, we will execute all the things. Okay, so the next thing, I want to delete a particular employee from the table. I'm also using this method delete employee. So this all the find by id, delete by id, get one, these are all the predefined methods. Okay, so here you can see whenever I select this cursor, you can see that, yeah, you just see it return the reference of to the entity with given id by, so depending on how the JPA persistent provider. So these are all the things from that particular JPA repository methods. Okay, so that JPA repository interface we have extended our particular employee repository interface. That's why we get this kind of methods. So the next thing, I'm noting the business logic. Now I want to write a controller. So in this controller, okay, I want to perform, or I want to adding a REST web service annotations. So you already know that get, post, put, delete, these are all the HTTP methods. So instead of I'm writing at request mapping method equal to request method dot get, I'm directly using that post mapping, get mapping, delete mapping inside this controller. So here what I have to do, I'm creating a controller class, then I make it this controller class as REST controller. So you know that whenever you make this annotation as a REST controller, this should be perform some REST operation. So REST web service operation. So here I'm mark this request mapping annotation as class level annotation. So this is our particular path at request mapping value equal to emp. This path should be configured inside our Swagger configuration class. I will show you. So next thing, I make this employee service inject the dependencies by using this automated operation. So next one, I want to write a REST web service logics. So for storing the information inside the employees. So on that scenario, I'm using public string save at request body. So you already know that obviously what is request body like that. Then employee emp, then employee service dot save employee. Whenever I'm calling this method, it will directly go to refer here. What is that save employee? Here we can save this particular thing, right? So here we can set particular employee repository dot save method will be called. So after entering the particular employee id, employee name, employee designation, it will store inside the particular table from the particular database. Okay, so next one should be, I want to fetch the all data from the employee. So before going to save like that, so you obviously know that post mapping annotations. So in a REST web service, so we have a lot of annotations are there. In post mapping annotations, is purpose is used to create a resource. That means that particular user can create a new information. Okay, that is what that post mapping annotation. Then get mapping is used to get a resource or fetch a resource from the particular table or particular uh, file or particular programs like that. Okay, so here I'm using get mapping. Here I'm fetching the details from the database. That's why I want to fetching the group of employees, also single employee information, 10 employees information, many things. That's why I make it this list, public list employee. Then I create one method get, then finally I call employee service dot get employee. So here directly it will go to here that service class. This get employee should be called. Then it will find the already employee information stored in the particular database inside the tables. Okay, so third one should be, I already told you, I want to fetch the data, a single employee data from the table based on the employee ID. That's why I'm using also. So whatever the fetching, retrieving, all same meaning. Whenever that kind of things will happen, we have to use the get mapping method. Okay, so here I'm using this get emp id. Here you know that I want to give the particular employee id. Okay, so whenever you give the employee id, then it will return the particular employee information like employee name or employee designation, whatever the attributes you put it inside the model class. Okay, now here I'm passing that employee id, then I will get the particular things. So here you know that path variable and so you have to give the value inside the particular tab. So URL. So next thing, you want to delete a particular employee information. That same thing we have to use a delete mapping annotations. Okay, so based on the delete mapping annotations, you can use particular things. You have to pass an employee ID, then we have to perform employee. Same thing. So I want to update some employee information. So in a REST web service, if you want to create a new resource, you have to use post mapping. So if we want to fetch a resource, we have to use get mapping. So if we want to delete some particular resource, we have to use delete mapping annotation. So if you want to update or modify any resource, so we have to use put mapping annotation. Okay. So these are all the things I'm doing. So finally I make the particular, first of all I pass the employee ID. After that I make changes some employee name, employee designation. Finally I save the employee information. So this is for controller implementing this. Now I will going to explain a Swagger. So the Swagger API. So nowadays all the industries are making a documentations using Swagger API. So Swagger API is very useful for creating a documentations. Apart from that, it is a better approach. Suppose in a real-time project someone going to relieve on that project, so the new resource will be going to work on that project. So that particular resource want to know uh, what I'm saying is, so how the what are the things are already embedded, like they're already implemented in this project. So he want to know, he or she want to know about this project. That's why we make a documentations of the every controller whatever we needed. So on that thing we are using a Swagger API. There are a lot of documentations APIs are there, but our we using a Swagger API. So Swagger API is used to create a documentations for the every REST web service or every REST path. Okay, so here in your project there are a lot of controllers are there. You don't want to create all the controllers implement this Swagger API. Whatever needed that particular controller, you must create a Swagger API. So before creating a Swagger API, you want to add the Swagger dependencies. Here you can see in a form.xml, because this project is based on Maven, so that's why you have to add a Swagger dependency. Here you can see Springboot Swagger UI, Springboot Swagger 2. So these two dependency you have to add it inside the form.xml file. So apart from that, before creating these applications, you have to add the relevant dependency, like if you Spring Boot, we have to add the Spring data JPA, because we perform JPA properties. Then we have to add Spring Web. So apart from that, dev tools, you know that whenever we change any thing inside our application, it will be reloaded. We don't want to again restart the server again and again. That particular dev tools dependency will doing like default. So the next one, yeah, I am using mysql, that's why I added the mysql connector dependency. So like that, so we have to added the dependency before writing these particular classes. So let me go for Swagger configuration. Here I am creating this Swagger configuration class. So in this class I want to document the APIs. So first one, I make this class as configuration, because this is Java based configuration. That's why I make this class as configuration. The next one, we have to enable the Swagger. That's why I'm using the enable Swagger annotations. Now this particular bean class should be there while returning the Swagger API. So at bean annotation public docket class, then you give it some method name. So return new docket, documentation type dot Swagger dot select. These are all things of predefined dot APIs. In this APIs method, we have to produce, you have to scan the particular packages. So on that thing I'm using request handler dot base package com dot info dot app dot controller, because our REST path should be inside this employee controller class. That's why I'm making this class as a particular scanning things. The next one, I want to tell, whenever I am running this program, I want to where I have to start this particular path. So on that scenario, I have to pass the URL like that. Here in a controller you can see a topmost class. Here you can see the request mapping annotation at class level annotations. Here I am using value equal to emp. This URL should be, I have to calculate whenever I am implementing this Swagger. So that's why I put here path selectors dot regular expression slash emp. After dot star means whatever that emp, after anything it will be applicable or acceptable. Then finally dot build, then API info, meta info. This is nothing but information about this Swagger API. So for private API info, meta info, here I'm telling the what this application is about. Here I'm putting the title Springboot implement Swagger documentation, a real-time example of Swagger implementation with Springboot using MySQL REST web service. Like that, these are all the things will be displayed whenever I'm trying to running this particular project. So finally I return API info. This API info will call inside this particular document. So now I am going to run this example. So here what I have to do. So first of all you have to go to that main class. So you obviously you all know that where it will be in main class. Here you can see this is a Spring Boot bootstrap class. So here I kill down the server, then I'm going to run this particular class. So just a second. Yeah, so here we can see I already stored some employee details already. So like I just delete the table first. So drop table employee, because table will be created manually by the Spring Boot. We don't need to create a table, so that Spring Boot will zip. So now I'm going to run this example. Carefully see these things. Spring Boot app. So look at this console. In the console, this particular thing, your server should be started on 90914. So clearly watching these things, sir. So obviously we know that it will return the Spring Boot version 2.3.1. So these are all the log information, because Spring Boot have a default logback logging mechanism embedded inside the Spring Boot. So here you can see our Tomcat installed with the port 9091, because our Tomcat is defaultly embedded in a Spring Boot. There is no need to manually configure the Tomcat server. That is the advantage of Spring Boot. Now here you can see in a Hibernate, it will create a table automatically inside that particular database. Create table ID destination name. The ID should be a primary key. Now I am going to run the example. So here what I have to do, go to URL, then localhost colon 9091, because our Tomcat port start on this number, no, slash swagger ui .html. Now you see our particular information here. You can see a Spring Boot implements Swagger documentation, a real-time example of Swagger implementation. So these are all the things came from that particular Swagger configuration class, because we noted that we implemented already right here. Spring Boot implements Swagger documentation like that. Now what I have to do, instead of storing the information using Postman tool, I am using this Swagger. So here you can see this was application was created by by me. So contact by developer like that. Then this is our employee controller. So we created a class as employee controller. You see here, yeah. This is the class name employee controller. Here just click this employee controller. We have a 5 different REST path. So get, post, put, and delete. So this thing we have to perform here database operation. Now you can see here, fetch particular employee details from the database, fetch all employee records, enter the new employee records like that. So where it is came from? It is came from this string? No, it's not came from this string. It is from our particular controller class. Inside the controller class, I am making that every HTTP methods, I am using that API operation annotation. These annotations is from a Swagger created annotations. Okay, that I want to. We can, whenever we are trying to execute or suppose any new resource will came to the project, or a client will run this project, the client wants to understand what this particular REST path will give the will perform some operations. So the client should be understand. That's why we make the documentation. We just make the type API operation value equal to enter a new employee record. So on that scenario, client will understand. Oh, so we have to create a new employee information on this particular post mapping annotation. So here post, you can see the post method is there. So just click this method. here these are all the rest related things. So how we can store the employee information, it will show some model. We can see the first one you open like this. So here first one I'm storing my name, so Java developer. So we don't need to pass the ID because the ID is auto increment. So auto increment primary key. So we don't want to pass things like that. We pass only name and designation. It's enough. So here designation. So here I'm pass. Sorry. So name. So designation should be a backend developer. Then finally you close here. So here just try it out, click this button. You see the response below here. Employee information stored successfully. This message came from your controller class. You can see after successfully enter the one employee information, it will return this based on these particular methods, because this method return type is string. Then you going to check inside your table. You just select star from employee. You see ID, designation, the name. Okay, so right now we created, right? Then go for next API. I want to create another things, like I'm changing the name Rahul. Then I make front end developer. Then this try it out button. You see here employee information stored successfully. Again going to check here. Yeah, you can see the name and designation, because this table is already there, that's why it deleted. Then ID should be already, I'm storing some data, that's why it will be on 4 and 5, because already stored the 1 2 3 information on things. So next thing, we're going to check get mapping. So get path. So in get path we have to fetch all the details, fetch particular employee details or fetch all employee records. Just click this particular thing, just click the try it out button, you will retrieve the records from the table. You see the two records from this our table. So the next thing, I want to fetch a single employee detail, that's why I'm going to pass a ID. So you can see pass your ID. So I want to pass the ID number 4, then you can see it will retrieve the ID number 4 information. So name Bala, backend developer. So the next thing, you want to delete some data. Okay. So you want to delete some data. On that scenario, we have to use here delete mapping annotations. Here you can see, yeah. Here just pass the ID and click this button. So I'm passing the ID as well. Then I'm deleting. Click the try it out. It will delete it. See the response. So let me going to check. Select star from employee for, you see that ID 5 is deleted because we using that particular delete mapping annotations. So the next finally we are going to implement update a information. So update a particular employee resource. That's why we are using put mapping. Here we have to see this, we have to pass. So here ID is mandatory because we already made that particular employee controller inside the thing. Here you can see in a put mapping we pass the ID. So that employee ID is must. So what I have to do, we pass the ID 4, then change the name. So here before that you can see our ID is like Bala, then designation is backend developer. I am changing the name as Siva, then designation is SQL developer, like that. So finally we click the try button. See the response, employee information updated successfully. Going to check the data. Here you can see. So this is what, friends. So we have to implement here real-time applications, a real-time project. We have to use this particular thing, Springboot with Swagger documentations using a MySQL database, crud applications. Any doubt? reply me. Okay, thank you. Please subscribe this channel.